on NHRA Today. Pots of gold at the end of the Rockingham rainbow. 4 decades of power making. The shifting fortunes of pro stock. And escape to the past on a pair of wings. From Fayetteville, North Carolina, these stories and more on the video magazine of championship drag racing, NHRA Today.
The southeastern portion of the United States is steeped in many great traditions. And among those old-fashioned values is the belief that race cars must have fenders and look like something you'd see on the street. One drag racing class where you see many purebred but stock-bodied cars is in Competition Eliminator. And 2 of the fastest comp racers in the country are based out of this shop, father and son Vince and Mike Holmes. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Evans and welcome to NHRA Today from inside the Holmes & Sons Racing Shop. And I'll tell you, this is as nice a facility as we have found anywhere in motorsports. And this week we'll meet both halves of the Holmes juggernaut and bring you up to date on these stories. You'll meet Keith Black, the man who helped pioneer the development of today's 4,000 horsepower engines. And we'll go aloft with NHRA Competition Director Steve Gibbs as he escapes the hectic world of the quarter mile. But now here's the first of 3 reports that Dave McClellan has prepared detailing the results of the Winston Invitational. David?
Steve, the fun and funny car at Rockingham started on day 1, courtesy of the irrepressible John Force. Remarking upon the large crowd in attendance, Force was heard to comment that instead of the low qualifying award, he would prefer a piece of the gate. Well, the next morning, Sports Marketing Enterprises Senior Vice President T. Wayne Robertson and Rockingham's Executive Vice President Frank Wilson obliged. Uncharacteristically, Force was speechless. Once competition began, Force walked off with the race as easily as he walked off with a piece of the gate. In round 1, he outran a crossed-up Richard Hartman. And in the semifinals against Ed McCulloch, Force posted the fastest run of the round, while the A's drew a pair of wheel stands, cashing in his chances. Meeting the Castrol Cutlass in the finals was Mark Oswald, who had expertly backpedaled his Candies and Hughes probe to near-lane victories over Jim White in round 1, and 1989 Winston champ Bruce Larson in an even smokier round 2. Before the final round battle, both teams made changes. Oswald's team concentrating on the clutch, while Austin Coyle and crew installed a fresh Keith Black engine. At the lights, Force took a 200s advantage that held to the top end of the track, leaving him a total of $35,000 richer and in need of some time off.
We're very excited for this week. Going into the next race, I'm going to be able to go home and maybe really take some time off mentally and enjoy it with the kids, and I plan on doing that.
Last weekend's victory by a Keith Black engine was not just another meaningless notch in a long list of triumphs. Even though he's past retirement age, Black continues to pour all of his energies into the machinery that bears his name.
If you look at the engine compartment on some of the fastest top fuelers or funny cars racing today, there's a good chance you'll find one common denominator, a Keith Black engine. Over the past 30 years, what began as a backyard hobby for Black has grown into a multi-million-dollar business. Black's integrity, ingenuity, and down-to-earth business philosophies have made him one of the most respected engine builders in the sport.
It's probably old-fashioned, but I like to treat people like I like to be treated. And you hear that, but you don't see it very much.
Black first used his knowledge of high-performance engines in boat racing. After winning the APBA National Championship in 1954, Black decided to retire as a driver and concentrate on what he really enjoyed, building engines.
Now people say, why did you drive? And I'd say they scare me. And I felt that if you can't do something, get it done. And I found that my thing was making them run, and part of making them run is pick the best driver.
Black got his chance to make them run in the early 60s when he became involved in competition drag racing, and that was as a favor to a friend, Tommy Greer. The result of that partnership was the Greer Black and Prudhomme car, which compiled a stunning 93% win record. The demand for Keith Black's services skyrocketed overnight.
He's a pretty amazing person. He was the guy that originally developed the slipper clutch in our sport. And in the Greer Black car, we had that in there, of course, and it was just head and shoulders above the competition, and he was the guy really responsible for it.
Throughout the years, Keith Black has remained on the cutting edge of the engine building business, and he continues to look toward the future.
I don't want to retire because I look forward to getting over here. I enjoy what's going on. I enjoy the stuff we're doing. You can tell that. My wife said, when do you retire? I tell her when they put me in a box, as long as my health is good.
NHRA Today is being brought to you by Firestone, makers of Firehawk Performance tires for the street, the track, and the strip. Tires that meet the test. And by Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown.
Quarter mile in a real competition vehicle, well, that dream could come true if you're one of the 5 winners of the Castrol GTX Drag Racing School Sweepstakes. In association with the Chief Auto Parts Mid-South Nationals in Memphis, May 3rd through the 6th, Castrol is providing full tuition and travel to the school in Gainesville, Florida. Now send your name, address, and phone number on a postcard to this address. It must be postmarked before May 1st, and winners will be announced live on TNN's Nashville Now on May 4th. And now, for all of you Sportsman fans, Bob Fry will bring us up to date on divisional action from last weekend. Bob?
Thanks, Steve. You know, running in conjunction with the Winston Invitational was a full slate of Sportsman cars as Division II held its second Winston points race of the season, and the action was fast and furious.
In competition eliminator, former Winston World Champion Larry Cobb lined up in the far lane against 1989 Supergas World Champion David Rampy. In a race that was won by about the thickness of a coat of paint, Cobb took the win light, much to the pleasure of his supporters from Amato Racing. Pennsylvanians Bob Phillips and Iggy Boychesco met in the finals of Supergas, with the red Plymouth Arrow pulling quickly away from the struggling Corvette.
He got out of shape, which was a shame, but what are you going to do? That's racing, I guess.
Arch rivals Pat Austin and Bob Newberry met in the finals of Alcohol Funny Car, but this race ended before the first marker cone as Austin continued his season-long attraction to the center line. In Super Comp, Jay Hellman in the near lane made Pennsylvania proud again as he chased down a slowing and nervously glancing Steve Layton. Both drivers ran under the 8.90 index, with Hellman taking the title and capping off a successful Southern campaign for the Invaders from the Northeast.
We had a good showing down here. We're all within about a half hour of one another. We come down here and usually get beat up, but I guess it was our turn to return the favor.
Here are other winners from Rockingham.
Among the top racers in Division II are father and son Vince and Mike Holmes, who both race in the always tough competition eliminator category. Recently, their strongest challenge and their greatest frustration came when they squared off against one another. Drag racing has become a way of life for Winston Holmes and his son Michael.
Been racing since 1967. Started out street racing, messing around home. Then we started racing at the local tracks. Match racing, we did pretty good.
Just grew up in it. It's in my blood. Raised up in it. He's been doing it for a while. He knows how to do it. I'm still learning. I learned from him.
And learning he is. With semifinal and final round appearances in 2 of the first 4 national events, Michael's proven he's a contender, even if it means outrunning his dad.
It's just like racing, you know, I want to whoop him. I hate to feel that he wants me to win. I want him to be tough, you know. Run me just as hard as he would run anybody else.
I just love to go fast. No feeling like it. It's my goal. Be the first black competition champion in the world.
As a father, Vince is very supportive of Michael's goals. But due to a quirk of drag racing scheduling fate in Phoenix, he became another one of Michael's victims.
It's bad to have to face each other early. That's the only thing I hate about it. I like later on in the race, but I'm going to run him just as hard as I'm going to run in the finals.
Yeah, I got him. He red lit. It was close. It would have been close. It's been a good race. Won't no foul.
Congratulations. All right. You want to go? Red light. He's ahead. No, that's a tie. That's a tie, isn't it? 2 and 2. 429. I get him on the next one.
Drag racers are always looking for new innovations. This is the brand new top alcohol dragster of Leonard Cottrell and former U.S. Nationals champion Hugh Fuzzy Norton. If you look closely at this car, you'll see the real speed secret is the chicken. Never underestimate the power of the chicken. Well, down in Division 4, I'm not sure if they have any chickens, but they might have a few armadillos down there.
But the armadillos stayed out of sight around Amarillo Dragway last Sunday, driven into hiding by the high winds. The speed shown by 1989 Winston world champion Tommy Conway sent his alcohol dragster competition into hiding as Conway took a solo pass for the victory. Two of the top superstock racers in Division 4 met in the finals, with former divisional champ Elijah Boyd beating Greg Stanfield. Here are other winners from Amarillo. And finally, David Nickens used a perfect 5:00 reaction time to defeat Randy Pumphrey's dragster in Comp Eliminator. The win moves Nickens into the lead in the Winston World Championships. Steve?
Thank you, Bob. You know, Vince and Mike aren't the only guys here in the home shop that like to race on the weekends. When they're off with their comp cars, two of their employees, Steve and Lamont, are getting their quarter-mile kicks in a slightly different fashion. And boy, are these babies fast. But not quite as fast as the Top Fuel dragster action at the Winston Invitational. Here's Dave's report.
Steve, the capacity crowd at the Winston Invitational saw the first round of Top Fuel through a haze as all four cars racing in the near lane lit up and smoked their tires. First, Laurie Johns nearly obscured a career-best 5:02 by last year's top qualifier, Jim Head. Then Gene Snow and Don Prudhomme both hit trouble in their first-round pairing. With the Snake fighting his bucking mount to the finish line for the win, Snow stranded at the starting line, broken. In the next race, Kenny Bernstein carried our onboard camera as usual, but was beaten by the blue car of Joe Amato. Watch at the left of your screen. The near lane janks continued in the last of the first round encounters as Shirley Muldowney went up in smoke and down to defeat against Darrell Gwynn. So after the tire-smoking tribulations in the first round of Top Fuel, our final four returned to the pit area to make some tuning adjustments. The two teams that found the right combination were Gwynn and Amato, and both drivers flirted with the fours in their semifinal round victories. As the sun dipped low behind the tree at the start of the finals, Amato pulled a hole shot and held off Gwynn's slightly quicker ET, but Joe didn't know he had won until he rolled to a stop and met Steve Evans.
What a drag race. You didn't know who won.
Yeah, it was so close, Steve. I couldn't tell till you came down the end of the track and came over with the camera.
I've told you before, don't ever call me when I'm on location. Just kidding, folks. I borrowed the phone in Vince Holmes' lovely office to call the NHRA Now hotline phone number to get the latest scoop. See, it doesn't matter where you are or what time it is. If you can get to a phone and dial 1-900-468-NHRA, you can hear my good buddy Dave McClellan with almost instantaneous late-breaking news about all classes of drag racing. So take advantage of this great opportunity and dial right away. When the pro stock contingent rolled out onto the track at Rockingham, it was a stock-bodied racing fan's delight because the field was twice the size of Top Fuel or Funny Car. As the old saying goes, double your pleasure, double your fun. Right, Dave?
Steve, there's no question at all about the excitement of Pro Stock Eliminator. In fact, less than a tenth of a second separated the 16 cars here at the Winston Invitational. The rock in Rockingham can be taken literally because at the Winston Invitational, we saw some of the hardest pro stock racing ever, and most of it courtesy of Californian Jerry Ekman. From the first round on, Ekman never ran a time slower than a 7:29. The only driver who appeared capable of challenging Ekman was defending Winston Invitational champ Larry Morgan. But when the two drivers met in the finals, it was only heartbreak for Morgan as his car balked at reversing after his burnout. Ekman patiently and sportingly waited as Morgan finally coaxed his car into the staging beam, but the Ohioan left too quickly, and victory belonged to Ekman's potent Pontiac.
We knew we had the power to come here and do well, and everything just went our way, and we ran well all weekend and got the win light. I'm excited.
To win a high-stakes money race like the Winston Invitational requires not only reliable equipment, but equipment that can be tuned to the performance of the race track on any given day. And a vital link to the success of any pro stock operation is the transmission, which in some cases is shrouded in a bit of secrecy. To find out more about that and how they work, here's Big Daddy Don Garlitz. Don?
Underneath that aluminum floor pan is one of the most important devices for a successful pro stock operation, second only to the engine. The Lenco 4-speed transmission, consisting of 3 independent gearboxes with a reverser. Each one of these boxes might have a different ratio in it. As you can see, these are coded specially by Warren Johnson. He doesn't want his competitors to know what he's running. and this ratio will be dependent upon track conditions. Now, the pro stock driver is a busy man doing a run. He's got to watch the tack, steer the car, and shift 3 times. Try that on, top fuelers.
Castrol presents the GTX Pipeline, the latest news from the world of drag racing.
You know, when the Holmes team goes to the track, they have 2 cars in their trailer and 2 drivers, both in the same category. Not so a man named Kenny Koretzky, who has unquestionably been the busiest driver on the NHRA Winston circuit this year. At all 4 events, the Pennsylvanian has dashed back and forth between his pro stock Chevy Beretta and his top fueler. Despite the hectic pace, Koretzky did set an NHRA record of sorts in Phoenix by qualifying both cars. But the weekend fell apart, along with his engine, sending the top fueler up the escape road and Kenny to the hospital with a cracked vertebrae. After some success with the dragster, but not the pro stock, a decision is on the horizon.
I'd like to continue with the top fuel car, and we're making some improvements on the pro stock car. Another race or 2, and I'll probably make my mind up, and the sponsors will tell me exactly which car they want me to run. I think by Englishtown we'll concentrate, hopefully, just on the top fuel car. I think that's basically what I want to stay with.
The pressures of drag racing are everywhere. I don't mean just in the driver's seat or in the pits or even in the broadcast booth. I mean everywhere. And everyone has to find a way to get away and relax and enjoy themselves. The Holmes family do it fooling around with their lovely street cars. But there's one NHRA official who may have found the ideal solution. As NHRA's vice president of competition, Steve Gibbs' weekends are hectic.
Track preparation, the conduct of the race, the enforcement of the racing activity, the flow of the race, the scheduling, the crews, again, almost all the on-track activity falls under the competition department, and it's enough to keep the whole department busy.
Just roll them on out there and we'll suit them out there. Let's just roll them all up and we'll get them in the cars out there. I need to kill about 2 minutes here. So just pull them right in behind the comp cars.
The racing business is a very intense business, and it's become big business, and there are a lot of pressures, and I love the job. It's a great job, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, but there are times when you need to kind of get away and get your head on straight and get a fresh perspective on things.
For Gibbs, the freshest perspective of all comes when behind the stick of his prized possession, a 1943 Stearman biplane.
I've had the airplane for 3 years now, and continue to try to keep it in good shape. It's a total restoration, but the basic airframe and a lot of the components are the original airplane. And it was a World War II naval trainer, saw service in Louisiana and Texas, and was active from 1943 to 1945. For the plane itself, there's quite a history. I wish I could talk at times because it's really seen a lot in its life.
But time was something that almost caught up with Gibbs himself.
1984, I had a pretty serious health problem that could have gone either way, and after I escaped that, I decided it was time to do something I'd promised myself most of my life, and I wound up buying the airplane and learning to fly in it. It took me about 6 months to solo and get comfortable in the airplane. I'm still working at being proficient at it. It's been a challenge, but we've done pretty well for an old dog, new tricks.
Normally, Steve Gibbs is surrounded by the quickest race cars in the world, so it's ironic that his Stearman is considered underpowered.
It's a slow airplane. You're out in the open, although it isn't as noisy or as windy as you might expect. And obviously, you go flying on nice days. This is not a foul weather airplane, and it's not a point A to point B airplane. It's for fun. It's to go up on a nice clear day and cruise around and see the sights and enjoy yourself. And it's when you're up there, though, you really get enwrapped in it, and it's a great feeling. You come back down, and I mean, you want to go right back again. It's a fun thing for me. It's an escape from the drag racing rigors, which is kind of a reversal. Most people go to the drags to escape from their normal life, and I kind of have this to get away from the drag races once in a while.
Well, now that we have our feet back firmly on the ground, we'd like to thank all of our newfound friends here in Fayetteville for all of their hospitality. Look at this spread they've laid out. And to wrap up this edition of NHRA Today. But there will be more great drag racing stories next week. we'll introduce you to Larry Miner, the potato farming baron who owns drag racing's largest professional operation. And we'll demonstrate how you might be able to wrench your way into professional racing. For Dave McClellan and Bob Fry and Big Daddy Don Garlitz, I'm Steve Evans saying thanks for joining us on this edition of NHRA Today. Okay, gang, it's time to cut the cake.
NHRA Today has been brought to you by Castrol GTX, engineered for today's smaller cars, and by Firestone, makers of Firehawk performance tires for the street, the track, and the strip, tires that meet the test. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by this special offer from Diamond P.
For years, you've all loved Diamond P Sports Home Video, Decade of Thrills, the ultimate drag racing experience. Well, I've got some great news. Don Perdomo and I are back with the all-new 90-minute Decade 2, the thunder of the 80s. Eddie Hill cracks the fours, then flies away. Connie Coletta marches past 290. Ed McCullough and John Collins will never forget the Cajun Nationals of 84, nor Kenny Bernstein, Maple Grove, PA, 87. Glidden won his 50th and his 75th in the same decade. Don Gay Jr. survived the unsurvivable. It's all in Decade of Thrills, too. To get your copy, send $24.95 to the address in your screen, or better yet, call 1-800-767-1600. Visa and MasterCard accepted, no CODs. Call now, 1-800-767-1600.
NHRA Today has been a presentation of Diamond P Sports.